Kingdom. Let's have a listen. Those were the bells ringing across the United Kingdom to mark the death of Queen Elizabeth II. The bells rung in Westminster Abbey and at St Paul's Cathedral in London, as well as Windsor Castle. And at Windsor, the bell will continue ringing once a minute for 96 minutes to mark every year of the Queen's life. The bell only rings at Windsor for the death of a sovereign. Okay, let's take a look at what's happening across Britain now. We will go to Buckingham Palace now, where the flag is flying at half-mast to mark the death of the Queen. Let's see if we can get those pictures. Crowds are gathering there and paying tribute to the Queen Elizabeth II. Mourners are placing flowers and notes outside the palace gates. A short distance away, Parliament is about to hold a special session to mark the Queen's death. Let's see if we can get some pictures outside of Windsor Castle now. OK, this is actually Balmoral Castle in Scotland, hundreds of kilometres north of the scene in Parliament, Scotland. This is where the monarch passed away. We can see crowds gathered there, paying their respects to Queen Elizabeth II. Let's cross to James Bays now, who's live for us in London. We're waiting for that special session to mark the Queen's death of Parliament. James, what are we expecting for that session to hold?
Let me first, before I answer that question, Emily, tell you about the bells you were listening to a moment ago, because very odd where I am, standing right by the Houses of Parliament, and normally at the top of each hour you hear the bell at the top there, Big Ben, in the Elizabeth Tower, named after the late Queen. You hear that strike. We should have heard 12 strikes here at noon in London. We didn't, because they didn't strike the Big Ben. Big Ben didn't sound, so the other bells could be heard. So rather unusual, Big Ben not sounding here in London in the Houses of Parliament, where, as you say, a meeting is going to get underway in the next few minutes. Now, this is not business as usual for the UK Parliament. In fact, if business as usual was the case, it would have started about 2.5 hours ago, the proceedings. The normal political life of this country is on hold. You are not going to have any intense discussions about political issues in the coming days. We believe the mourning is going to go on for about 12 days and the funeral is likely to take place on Monday the 19th, although that has not been formally announced at this stage. What you're going to see in Parliament today, when that session gets underway in the next few moments, is you're going to see tributes from political leaders. We're going to have any MP who wants to make a tribute making tributes. In fact, the session here is going to go on today for some 10 hours. So we're going to hear from some of the political leaders who haven't spoken yet. We're going to hear from ordinary MPs. We're also going to have another session of this taking place on Saturday. There's something called the Accession Council taking place early on Saturday. Now, King Charles is already the king. That happens legally just when the Queen dies. He inherits the throne, but there's a rubber stamp process called the Accession Council, which will take place on Saturday morning. That's the Privy Council, which is an ancient body in the UK, joined by some representatives of some of the other countries, high commissioners from the other countries where the Queen was head of state. After that's taken place, then Parliament will be back, more tributes for 8 hours again on Saturday here from MPs paying tribute to the late Queen.
Yes, I want to ask you a little bit more about that, James, about Saturday's session. It's quite unusual for Parliament to be sitting on a Saturday, isn't it? And tell us a little bit more about what's going to happen and unfold over the weekend.
Well, I think the Accession Council is very interesting because we haven't seen one of those take place since the Queen took the throne in 1952. It is a gathering of what's known as the Privy Council. Now, I'll give you a little bit of history. The Privy Council originally was the ministers who used to sit around the King or Queen but in the days before there was parliamentary government in this country. It's evolved, and the Privy Council still exists. A lot of what they do is ceremonial. Some of what they do is still done traditionally by the Privy Council, and it's just government ministers sitting in another forum. But as I say, they'll be joined by other representatives, including senior civil servants, including representatives from the other nations where the Queen was the sovereign. And remember, she was not just the Queen of the United Kingdom and the countries that make up the United Kingdom, she was also the Queen of 14 other countries around the world. So they will be represented too, and that will be a gathering of that, a session council, and then the second part of that, King Charles will actually join that and read out an oath. So important moments taking place, and then, as I say, you'll get Parliament back here on Saturday with more tributes being paid. And I think parliamentarians, the MPs, will be trying to set the tone for the country, giving their own recollections of their own meetings with the Queen. But I think they'll also be trying to follow the public mood as well, and try and reflect on how the public see this. I think there's an aim for all the political leadership to try and make sure that what's been planned for literally years, this plan for the
James,
Queen's
I'm
death
just
and
going to
then the
interrupt you
funeral,
now. Sorry, James, to interrupt you, but we are going to cross live now to Parliament, which is holding a special session to mark the Queen's death. Let's listen in.
I was in the chair almost 70 years ago. 57 complete sessions of Parliament have passed since then, and as she was here to open all but 3 of them, as parliamentarians, we have celebrated with her for silver, golden, diamond jubilees, and of course marked her platinum jubilee this year, in which the lamp standards have been unveiled in New Palace Yard. In this place, her reign saw 10 different speakers occupy the chair. During her reign, there were 18 general elections, and I'm sure the Prime Minister will remind of us how many of her predecessors she welcomed to, and always, I am sure, with quiet wisdom. As the longest-serving monarch this country has known, she would have been assured of a notable entry in our history books, even were it not for the magnificence in which she undertook the role as Queen, but for a magnificent service, and what a service that entailed, not just as head of the nation, but head of the Commonwealth, head of the Armed Forces, and Supreme Governor of the Church of England. Over her reign, she has seen unprecedented social, cultural, technological change. Through it all, she was the most conscientious and dutiful of monarchs. But while she understood the inescapable nature of duty, which sometimes must have weighed upon her heavily, she also delighted in carrying it out, for she was the most devoted monarch. As well as Queen, she was a wife, a mother, a grandmother and great-grandmother, roles she carried out with the same sense of vocation as well as human kindness as the role of Queen. Her life, without unhappiness and troubles, but our memories of her will be filled with that image of a gently smiling dedication that showed throughout her life. Indeed, while this is a time of very considerable sadness, those memories of a noble, gracious lady who devoted her life to her family, the United Kingdom, and those nations around the world whom she served as Queen, will bring us some consolation and joy. My deepest sympathies are with His Majesty, the King, and other members of the royal family, to whom I commend all our sincere condolences and support at this very, very sad time. Order. We are meeting today for tributes to Her late Majesty Queen Elizabeth. I would like to inform the House that we will sit today until approximately 10 p.m. for tributes. At approximately 6 o'clock, the House will be suspended while His Majesty, the King, makes his broadcast to the nation. Members present will be able to watch the broadcast on screens in the chamber. We will then resume our proceedings to continue with tributes. The House will then sit again tomorrow at 1 o'clock. The first business will be oath-taking for a small number of senior members. Members to be invited to take the oath tomorrow are being contacted by my office. All other members will have an opportunity to take the oath when the House returns. After oath-taking tomorrow, tributes will be continued. The House is expected to sit till approximately 10 p.m. The House is not expected to sit on Sunday. I now call the Prime Minister, Liz Truss.
Mr. Speaker, in the hours since last night's shocking news, we have witnessed the most heartfelt outpouring of grief at the loss of Her late Majesty, the Queen. Crowds have gathered, flags have been lowered to half-mast, tributes have been sent from every continent around the world. On the death of her father, King George VI, Winston Churchill said the news had stilled the clatter and traffic of 20th century life in many lands. Now, 70 years later, in the tumult of the 21st century, life has paused again. Her late Majesty, Queen Elizabeth II, was one of the greatest leaders the world has ever known. Yeah. She was the rock on which modern Britain was built. She came to the throne at just 25, in a country that was emerging from the shadow of war. She bequeaths a modern, dynamic nation that has grown and flourished under her reign. The United Kingdom is the great country it is today because of her. The Commonwealth is the family of nations it is today because of her. She was devoted to the union of England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. She served 15 countries as head of state, and she loved them all. Her words of wisdom gave us strength in the most testing times. During the darkest moments of the pandemic, she gave us hope that we would meet again. She knew this generation of Britons would be as strong as any. And as we meet today, we remember the pledge she made on her 21st birthday to dedicate her life to service. The whole House will agree. Never has a promise been so completely fulfilled. Yeah. Her devotion to duty remains an example to us all. She carried out thousands of engagements. She took a red box every day. She gave her assent to countless pieces of legislation and was at the heart of our national life for 7 decades. As Supreme Governor of the Church of England, she drew on her deep faith. She was the nation's greatest diplomat. Her visits to post-apartheid South Africa and to the Republic of Ireland showed a unique ability to transcend difference and heal division. In total, she visited well over 100 countries. She met more people than any other monarch in our history. She gave counsel to prime ministers and ministers across government. I have personally greatly valued her wise advice. Only last October, I witnessed firsthand how she charmed the world's leading investors at Windsor Castle. She was always so proud of Britain and always embodied the spirit of our great country. She remained determined to carry out her duties, even at the age of 96. It was just 3 days ago at Balmoral that she invited me to form a government and become her 15th Prime Minister. Again, she generously shared with me her deep experience of government, even in those last days. Everyone who met her will remember the moment. They will speak of it for the rest of their lives. Even those who never met her, Her late Majesty's image is an icon for what Britain stands for as a nation, on our coins, on our stamps, and in portraits around the world. Her legacy will endure through the countless people she met, the global history she witnessed, and the lives that she touched. She was loved and admired by people across the United Kingdom and across the world. One of the reasons for that affection was her sheer humanity. She reinvented monarchy for the modern age. She was a champion of freedom and democracy around the world. She was dignified but not distant. She was willing to have fun, whether on a mission with 007 or having tea with Paddington Bear. She brought the monarchy into people's lives and into people's homes. During her first televised Christmas message in 1957, she said, "Today we need a special kind of courage, so we can show the world that we are not afraid of the future. We need that courage now." In an instant yesterday, our lives changed forever. Today, we show the world that we do not fear what lies ahead. We send our deepest sympathy to all members of the royal family. We pay tribute to our late Queen, and we offer loyal service to our new King. His Majesty, King Charles III, bears an awesome responsibility that he now carries for all of us. I was grateful to speak to His Majesty last night and offer my condolences. Even as he mourns, his sense of duty and service is clear. He has already made a profound contribution through his work on conservation, education, and his tireless diplomacy. We owe him our loyalty and devotion. The British people, the Commonwealth, and all of us in this House will support him as he takes our country forward to a new era of hope and progress, our new Carolean age. The crown endures, our nation endures, and in that spirit, I say, God save the King.
I now call the Leader of the Opposition, Keir Starmer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, our country, our people, this House are united in mourning. Queen Elizabeth II was this great country's greatest monarch. And for the vast majority of us, it feels impossible to imagine a Britain without her. All our thoughts are with her beloved family, our royal family, at this moment of profound grief. This is a deep and private loss for them, yet it's one we all share, because Queen Elizabeth created a special personal relationship with us all. That relationship was built on the attributes that defined her reign: her total commitment to service and duty, her deep devotion to the country, the Commonwealth, and the people she loved. In return for that, we loved her. And it is because of that great shared love that we grieve today. For the 70 glorious years of her reign, our Queen was at the heart of this nation's life. She did not simply reign over us. She lived alongside us. She shared in our hopes and our fears, our joy and our pain, our good times and our bad. Our Queen played a crucial role as the thread between the history we cherish and the present we own. A reminder that our generational battle against the evil of fascism or the emergence of a new Britain out of the rubble of the Second World War do not only belong to the past, but are the inheritance of each and every one of us. A reminder that the creativity, the hard work, the enterprise that has always defined this nation is as abundant now as it ever was. A reminder that the prospect of a better future still burns brightly. Never was this link more important, that when our country was plunged into lockdown at the start of the pandemic, her simple message that we would see family again, that we would see friends again, that we would be together again, gave people strength and courage when they needed it most. But it wasn't simply the message that allowed a shaken nation to draw upon those reserves. It was the fact that she was the messenger. COVID closed the front doors of every home in the country. It made our lives smaller and more remote. But she was able to reach beyond that, to reassure us and steel us. At the time we were most alone, at a time we'd been driven apart, she held the nation close in a way no one else could have done. For that, we say thank you. On the occasion of the Queen's Silver Jubilee in 1977, Philip Larkin wrote of her reign, "In times when nothing stood, but worsened or grew strange, there was one constant good, she did not change." It feels like we are once again in a moment in our history where, as Larkin put it, things are growing strange, where everything is spinning. A nation requires a still point. When times are difficult, it requires comfort. And when direction is hard to find, it requires leadership. The loss of our Queen robs this country of its stillest point, its greatest comfort, at precisely the time we need those things most. But our Queen's commitment to us, her life of public service, was underpinned by one crucial understanding: that the country she came to symbolise is bigger than any one individual or any one institution. It is the sum total of all our history and all our endeavours, and it will endure. The late Queen would have wanted us to redouble our efforts, to turn our collar up and face the storm, to carry on. Most of all, she would want us to remember that it is in these moments that we must pull together. This House is a place where ideas and ideals are debated. Of course, that leads to passionate disagreement. Of course, temperatures can run high. But we all do it in pursuit of something greater. We do it because we believe we can make this great country and its people greater still. At this moment of uncertainty, where our country feels caught between a past it cannot relive and a future yet to be revealed, we must always remember one of the great lessons of our Queen's reign: that we are always better when we rise above the petty, the trivial, the day-to-day, to focus on the things that really matter, the things that unite us, rather than those which divide us. Our Elizabethan age may now be over, but her legacy will live on forever. And as the children of that era, it falls upon us to take that legacy forward, to show the same love of country, the love of one another, as she did, to show empathy and compassion as she did, and to get Britain through this dark night and bring it into the dawn as she did. We join together today not just to say goodbye to our Queen, to share in our mourning, but to say something else important. God save the King, because as one era ends, so another begins. King Charles III has been a devoted servant of this country his entire life. He has been a powerful voice for fairness and understood the importance of the environment long before many others. As he ascends to his new role, with the Queen Consort by his side, the whole House, indeed the whole country, will join today to wish him a long, happy and successful reign. Mr. Speaker, the emotions we see across the nation today are echoed across the Commonwealth, to which our Queen was so committed, in the Church, to which our Queen was so devoted, and in the armed forces, which she led and her family served. Around the world, people will be united in mourning for her passing and united in celebrating her life. We've already seen beautiful tributes flow from across the world. It will be impossible to capture them all here. But each one is a reminder of the esteem in which she was held, of what she achieved on behalf of her country, of the shared values we treasure. The reason our loss feels so profound is not just because she stood at the head of our country for 70 years, but because, in spirit, she stood amongst us. As we move forward, as we forge a new path, as we build towards a better future, she will always be with us, for all she gave us and all she will continue to give us. We say thank you. May our Queen rest in peace. God save the King.
I now call on the Father of the House, Sir Peter Bottomley.
Constituents will wish me briefly to record